Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. I hope you've had a great week. I'm going a little bit earlier tonight than I usually do on Sunday nights because I know the Jordan show's on tonight, right? And a lot of people are going to watch that. I might even have to watch that. It's been a very busy weekend, to be honest with you. I'm glad it's over with. So I was excited that there was a lot of genuine news going on. There was something happening. I think the NFL Combine brought us all to life. And that was pretty cool to think about football this fall, that it's coming back for the NFL for sure. I've got some news and updates for you on college football from stories that I've dug up and looked at. I probably woulda, shoulda, coulda wrote a story about what Greg Sankey said, about what's happening in Missouri, what the Texas AD said earlier. But I got so encompassed with this NFL draft, and shout out to my teammate Connor Riley. Between him and I, we did a lot of stories, and I did count, but I'm not going to give you the number. I'd probably get yelled at because I don't want to say we got carried away, but we hit every base. And with Georgia football, it just seems like that's what the fans want. Where is Jake Fromm expected to go? Why hasn't he gone yet? Once he's picked, why did he drop? What did Kirby say? What did Jake say? I mean, there's 5 or 6 stories on one guy, but Jake Fromm was a 3-year starter at the University of Georgia. He played in 3 SEC championships games. That just doesn't happen. And in fact, no other quarterback has done that. No other full-time starter has done what Jake Fromm did. Now, you can say, well, he didn't win a title or he didn't win as many SEC champ, and that's fine. Jake's career didn't check every single box, but look, the guy ended up with a Rose Bowl win, a Sugar Bowl win, an SEC championship game win. He's 36-7 or 35-7 if you don't count the start where Eason got hurt. A model citizen, a great ambassador. I go on, and so I felt that coverage was worthy. And then Andrew Thomas, he goes number 4 overall. I mean, that's the highest you've seen a Georgia guy picked in forever. The highest the Giants have picked an offensive lineman since 1974. You had all the media ticked. All the expert prognosticators were like, why did that happen? Because nobody picked it. They all had Andrew 3rd or 4th among the tackles. You just know the Giants were sandbagging. They're not going to go out there. And I've always been amazed. Like, people say, well, this team and that team. They're not going to tell you who they're going to pick. That would be insane, crazy, and wrong for them to say. It's like when you pick your lottery, and I don't play the lottery, so maybe I'm wrong here, but I do think people pick the lottery. I don't do it. I might have done it once or twice. Do you give your numbers to somebody else? I don't. And now I have slipped. I've told you on here before that 37 is one of my lucky numbers. I've given you that. You know that 32 is near and dear to my heart because I brought that up too. So there's 2 of my lucky numbers, but I'm not giving you any more. Not tonight. 37, 32, 2 of them. But my point is, they're not going to give it away. So when Andrew went number 4, it was really exciting, for a Georgia guy to go. And then Isaiah Wilson, 29. And part of the excitement was, hey, cool, another Georgia offensive lineman. Maybe there was something to the Great Wall. But then came the part where the mom pulls the girlfriend off of his lap. That had to be the funniest moment. And part of what made it so funny was the way that Isaiah Wilson handled. So he's like just sitting there. The mom pulls the girlfriend off the lap. He doesn't even look at that happening. He just acts like it hasn't happened. He keeps looking straight ahead because there is nothing he can do at this point. There is 0 he can do to get out of this situation. His mom's going to be mad or the girlfriend's going to be mad. So he just plays it straight like it didn't even happen. If you haven't seen that video clip, go to the Dog Nation page. And I've got a picture. I've got like a picture up from media days of Andrew and Jake and JR. But the clip is in there of... And Isaiah Wilson's such a great guy. But between the mom pulling the girlfriend off the lap, like, get out of the shot. It's going to be me. He just got picked. And Isaiah just looking straight ahead and totally not even reacting, not flinching, as I said. That was a great moment. Between that and then the Titans coach, Mike Vrabel, and the weird living room shot. This was a bizarro NFL draft, and it had to be because we're all dealing with this coronavirus pandemic. I wish I could say hi to all you. I'm on a roll here. Brian, John Walker, good. Thanks for joining me from St. Louis. I went in the Arch. I was like, excuse me, I like to go on these tangents. These are allergies, by the way. So don't worry, I'm fine. I take my temperature and things like that. And I'll get to that story too. I've got a real dilemma with what I'm going to do with the lawn if I've got these allergies I didn't even know I had. But St. Louis. So a couple years ago, I guess it was a year and a half ago, George was playing at Missouri, and Chip Towers and I flew into St. Louis, and I said to Chip, have you ever been in the Arch? He said, no. And I said, I've wanted to do it, but a little confession here, I might be a little bit claustrophobic. So I would look at the Arch and I would say, now how in the world does this work? Because the Arch doesn't look real big to me, but I've got a friend I got Chip with me. So if Chip's going to do it, by gosh, I'm going to do it. So we go underneath the ground, and it gets scarier because there's these little capsules that go like in a semicircle to the top. And these capsules are small. And once you're in there, you can't see out. You can see inward towards the mechanism that moves you up. But we're all thinking, what if it gets stuck? I don't want to be stuck inside this capsule, and CNN is going live from St. Louis where the Arch has gotten stuck. But I did it. I held my breath. I was a little freaked out, but I think having Chip there with me helped out. So went to the top of the Arch. Glad I did it. So thanks for joining me from St. Louis. Get that story out of the way, and we're going to talk more about the draft. So let's see. I wrote down some numbers here that we can talk about. There's a lot to talk about tonight. So I'm going to try and move fast because I don't want to be up. Saturday, was it Friday? Friday night. Friday night, you folks joined me. And we went after midnight waiting for Jake Fromm to get picked. And he never did. He didn't get picked, until Saturday. Saturday with pick 167 in the 5th round. Jake finally went to the Buffalo. But Friday night, man, if you were here, you're on the A team. And I know a lot of you were here and left, but thanks for joining me Friday night. So here it is, Sunday night, Mike. We're going earlier because I don't want to keep everybody up late tonight. 63 picks by the SEC. Every year you hear the Clemson fans come out of the woodwork, and I'm on good terms with them right now, by the way. I am now on good terms. I always was in my mind, but they were so mad that I picked Alabama to beat them the year before that I was a bad person because I thought, and because I said Alabama had a better regular season, which they did, and I did point out that Alabama was the best team in the regular season, and that made them really mad because they felt that tarnished their season. So there was some back and forth last year. I'm not getting into it with Clemson fans again. I like Clemson. I like Trevor Lawrence. I like Dabo Swinney. I have a lot of respect for Clemson. Clemson was one of those 4 or 5 teams when I was young that I liked because they had super cool uniforms, even though I didn't know where Clemson was until I was probably 8 or 9 years old. Remember, you could just Google everything back then. So anyway, where was I? 63 picks. The SEC so much better than the other leagues. Joe Burrow, the #1 pick to the Bengals. I'm going to give you kind of my hot takes on these guys. I don't expect great things from Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. I just don't. And that is because in the NFL, they chase you and they catch you. And in the NFL, with the Cincinnati Bengals, even though they added T. Higgins in the 2nd round, which I really like that, a Clemson guy, I really like that pick. And they have A.J. Green, of course, UGA great. There's not going to be that talent differential for the Bengals and whoever they're playing like Joe had going for him with LSU when they had 2 or 3 guys open seemingly on every play. So 1, he's not going to be able to buy as much time. 2, his guys aren't going to be as open as they were at LSU. And 3, he's the #1 pick, and there's going to be a target on his back. I just think he's a poor man's Cam Newton. Cam was able to buy time. Cam had a good arm. Cam was great. And I think Burrow is all that stuff. But in the NFL, it's a much more level playing field. And so I don't expect, now that's not to say that the Bengals shouldn't have taken him, but they better keep him healthy. They better keep him healthy. And I go back to David Carr. And I don't know how many of you remember David Carr coming out of Fresno State, but he had it all. Now, he didn't have the season like Joe Burrow did, but he didn't have the supporting cast like LSU either. But in terms of his arm strength, he had decent mobility, a great court. But he went to a bad team that couldn't protect him. He got beat up so bad, and he was never the same. And I fear that that could happen to Joe Burrow. I fear that could happen to Burrow. So let's wait and see. But if you're asking me, he ain't going to be on my fantasy football team, okay? I got some other guys that I do feel good about. Tua Tagovailoa to the Miami Dolphins, #5. They actually went through with that pick. I was a little surprised at that. Here's the good news for Tua. They drafted 3 offensive linemen. They're making it a priority to protect Tua. The problem there is Tua doesn't protect himself enough. It's going to be hard for Tua to learn to get rid of the ball quickly and to not want to extend plays. That is something that Tua does instinctually. It's what makes him a warrior. It's what made him a great college football player. But in the NFL, same thing as I said about Burrow. They catch up to you, they hit you, they land on you, and Tua has already had a hip. He's already had an ankle. This is a guy that's had 4 or 5 injuries and played less than 2 full seasons in college. It just doesn't look good in the NFL. Maybe the Dolphins said, hey, we got to take a chance at this. This guy could bring greatness. But if you ask me, Tua reminds me a lot of Marcus Mariota. Remember how unstoppable we thought Marcus was at Oregon? I certainly did. I witnessed Marcus do some amazing things against Michigan State up there in Eugene, one of the best games I've ever seen, one of the loudest environments I'd ever been a part of at Autzen Stadium. But Marcus Mariota did not transition to the NFL nearly as well as I thought he would. Now, he's come back from a broken leg, by the way. So Mariota's on his second chance. So my point is, if you're going to have a mobile quarterback, they better be durable, all right? They better be Cam Newton, and even Cam, is he on his last legs? Lamar Jackson, fabulous player, but how long will he go? Whereas you got guys like Manning and Brady, the pocket guys that get out of trouble before they get into it, with the pre-snap read, with the quick release, with the point guard skills. So there I am on those 2 picks right there. Now, Deandre Swift. I was one of the people the first night. I just knew he was going to the Dolphins. I just knew it. In fact, Connor and I were talking, and we came that close to pushing the button because we pre-write these stories, and then we fill it in when the guy gets picked, and then we do some reporting on what everybody says and come back with another story. This close, people. I was this close to pushing the button, and then the Dolphins traded that pick. And then 32 comes, and I'm having to stay up all night Thursday because you just know the Chiefs, he's a perfect fit. You're going, he is a perfect fit for this. The Chiefs pass on him and go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Everybody got a little power drunk on LSU, I think. Because there's so many great players, they made each other look better than they really were. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a good, workman-like, blue-collar back, but he is a journeyman back. He is not dynamic like Deandre Swift is. Deandre Swift has the potential to be a franchise back. Now, Deandre has had some injuries. You know this. He had the hernia surgery during going into his sophomore year, so he didn't have a full season of conditioning. Now, and then after his sophomore year, he had a good season, a strong season, off season, and we saw Deandre run heavy. We saw him still at 215, but he was built differently, stronger, more powerful. He started getting those goal line carries and powering through. He started being a little bit more north and south. Didn't see quite as much cutting ability. Didn't get the ball thrown to him as much. I thought that was an area, but how many times can Deandre really, touch the ball in one game? He was carrying it more, and therefore he wasn't thrown to as much. But that's where he's a real weapon, is in the open field. In the NFL, he will have a much better I believe he'll have a better career in the NFL than he did at Georgia. At Georgia relied on him heavily, and Kirby Smart pointed that out, and this is not, just to be clear, I want to be very clear and preface this. This is not an insult to Brian Herring, but you guys know the difference. Kirby said that Nick had Sony, and Sony had Nick, and Deandre had Brian. And I like Brian. Brian went to the Browns as a free agent. I think he's going to make that team. But I do not put Brian Herring in the same category as Sony Michel and Nick Chubb and DeAndre Swift. I just don't. I put him down a half a category. I put him right there with Elijah Holyfield. These are good, capable backs that can make NFL squads. But when we talk about Chubb and Swift, we're talking about franchise backs. I think Sony could be if he was in a better situation. I told a New England radio station this week, they called me up and they were talking to me about Thomas, and they asked me about Sony Michel and when is he going to perform. And I said, look, when is your head coach going to manage backs right? I don't like the way Bill Belichick manages running backs. Now, he's an expert. He's won a lot more Super Bowls than I have, but I love my running backs, and I don't like the way he manages them. I think Sony could do better with another team. I think his numbers would look better. His career, now he's not getting overworked there. I'm sure he's more than happy to be there. But for me, that likes to see these running backs jam on it and go 200 yards, I don't like the way he's being managed. Now, Swift goes to an interesting situation with Detroit. And by the way, I hope to have Isaac Nauta on this week. Isaac is a guy that, when I met him, I really respected him. I'd watched him at the opening. He worked with Jared Garantano when I was covering Tennessee, and I saw what Nauta did, and he was fabulous. And then I covered his junior year where he had 30 catches on 31 targets. He came up with big play. Whenever they called his number, Isaac was there. I was a little disappointed he went pro, but he felt he was ready. And if a guy feels like he's ready, you got to let him go. Because it's hard to get up and do those conditioning runs and go to class and go to the study hall and the tutors and all that stuff when you don't think you should be there. So Isaac was ready to go. He was a 7th round pick. He ended up getting cut. He made the practice squad, and then he was back on the roster at the end of the year. He's a success story. I told people he would make it in the league, even as a 7th rounder. They doubted me. Don't doubt me. Don't doubt Isaac Nauta. Isaac Nauta is a player, man. So I'm hoping to have Isaac on this week to talk about Swift going to Detroit. That backfield already has Kerryon Johnson. Oh, Georgia fans remember him from the regular season in 2017. That's the only game they lost the national championship game, but that's the only game in my mind they were decisively beat, okay? And Kerryon Johnson is a stud. I mean, he's a powerful, I don't think he's as dynamic or as explosive as Deandre, but he is every bit a powerful back. They also have Bo Scarborough, former Alabama, another power back, but Deandre comes in there now in a very good situation for him. I don't want to just say he's a 3rd down back because I don't think he is just a 3rd down back, but on that team, he'll be playing, in my mind, he'll be playing that Alvin Kamara role that you see the Saints do with Alvin Kamara. And I thought, and now I'm having Jim Nagy on from the Senior Bowl Tuesday. Jim's a former scout with the Seahawks and the Packers. I told Jim that the Deandre Swift that I saw in college was better than the Alvin Kamara that I saw at Tennessee in college. Now, that said, Alvin stepped up his game. He's explosive, and hats off to him because that young man has grown up and really put it on, man. He is dynamic, and Alvin Kamara, every Sunday, he's going to give you everything he's got, and I love his game. But he needs somebody else to balance him out. I think Swift is kind of like that. I like Deandre. I think he's a little bit more powerful than Alvin. I think he's an equal pass catcher. Alvin may have a step in the open field. They're both dynamic cutters. 1A and 1B, but he's in that mold. So great pick by the Detroit Lions. You saw it Friday night. I had that Honolulu blue on out of respect for the Lions. Grew up in the state of Michigan and never really was a Lions fan, but hats off to them for making a great pick with Deandre Swift. A couple other guys. I like what the Raiders did. A couple of SEC picks back to back with Lynn Bowden and Brian Edwards. Bowden, a guy that played at quarterback at Kentucky. Very good in the open field. I think Kentucky fans get a little carried away and forget that he didn't score against Georgia and didn't complete a pass until there was less than 5 minutes left. But he was very good. And Kentucky, by their standard, winning 7 or 8 games is a great season. And so Lynn Bowden is a guy, or Bowden, they'll remember him, they'll love him. And I think he could be that open field guy a la Randall Cobb in the NFL. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit, another former Kentucky guy. Brian Edwards, South Carolina's all-time leading receiver. Another guy UGA fans remember, had that, 47-yard touchdown catch in the first half, that explosive play. And oh, by the way, the last 6 games of the season, Georgia did not give up a play longer than 40 yards in the last 6 games of the regular season. Brian Edwards was the last guy to do it. He did it against, I want to say he might have got behind Devon Wilson a little bit on a crossing route. Probably had too much time to throw. So keep it on going down the draft, right? We get through day 2. Okay, so we get Swift off the board early, so that drama's over because you remember how upset Swift was on Friday. McCole Hardman even said, are you kidding me? 32 picks, and Deandre Swift's not one of the first ones. Love you, New York. So we get to day 3, Saturday. And it's not Jake that comes off the board, it's Solomon Kinley. And it's funny because I told his agent that I thought Solomon could go in the 3rd round. And he's, well, that would be really good. That'd be high. I think Solomon Kinley is a sleeping giant, quite literally. 6'3", 336. I think you put Solomon in South Florida where he keeps that weight off. He trains. I believe he's got a daughter. This is a very responsible, kind young man. And I think he will be the consummate pro once he gets plugged in around these other veterans in Miami. So that was awesome for Solomon Kinley to go to the Dolphins. They did something right there. So we're all wondering then, when is Jake Fromm going to go? Eason goes to the Colts. Now you're thinking, surely Fromm is the next one to go. Surprise. What was it? Let me call up this story. Somebody help me out. Where was this guy from? It was this, what? James Morgan from Florida International goes 3 picks after Eason, and we're going, okay, who in the heck is James Morgan from Florida International? He's a quarterback. And why hasn't Jake Fromm gone yet? Because now this is like, all right, now we're all kind of freaking. Even the guys on ESPN, Trey Wingo is like, okay. And they start talking about it. Why hasn't Jake Fromm gone yet? Kuiper talks about his bad combine performance again. Jake didn't throw the ball, really well there. He had to work out between Eason and Herbert, 2 of the stronger arm guys, so that magnified that his arm strength wasn't top of the line. It's still adequate if you look at the throwing speeds. It's not that far off. So what is it then? Why isn't Jake Fromm going? I couldn't figure it out. Chris Mortensen, who I've got a lot of respect for, he's a longtime ESPN insider. I think he does a great job. Mortensen mentioned that Indianapolis and New Orleans were 2 of the teams that really liked Jake Fromm, that Jake thought really liked Jake Fromm. Indianapolis went with Eason, okay? They went with the upside over the consistency of Jake, which I think is a mistake. I think it's a big mistake. But hey, it's Indianapolis, so they rolled the dice. We'll see what happens. And the Saints didn't pick a quarterback, which I was disappointed because I really wanted to see Jake go to the Saints. I think he's similar to Drew Brees. I'm not going to say he's Drew Brees. I don't know who is. Drew Brees is fascinating. He's fabulous. He's got a chance to be the all-time leading passer. He won't hang him up yet. He's an amazing competitor. So I'm not going to put Jake in Brees. But in terms of how they compare in their game, Jake is somewhat similar to Drew Brees. And so I was hoping that he would go there. So once those 2 teams were dealt out, the 2 teams that seemed to have the most interest in Jake had to know that wherever he was going to go, he wasn't going to be brought in to be weaned into the starting role, okay? He wasn't going to be brought in. When you don't go in the first 2 or 3 rounds, teams aren't thinking that you're their quarterback of the future. That's not saying it can't happen. I mean, we all have plenty of examples of where it's happened, whether it's, Dak Prescott in the 4th round, Kirk Cousins in the 4th round, certainly Tom Brady in the 6th round. You guys could probably yell out 4 or 5 more here of quarterbacks that weren't taken in the first 2 rounds that ended up being franchise quarterbacks. But Jake had to know then. That said, I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to be completely honest. The Bills pick made me feel bad. It made me feel bad. Because Josh Allen is a stud. I mean, the guy is 6'5", 237. He's only 2 years into his career. He's on the verge of I think, doing even great things. I like the Bills staff. I think they're well coached. That's a team I root for. I want to see him win a playoff game. I think somebody said it's been like 21 years or something. I don't know. I haven't counted the years. Somebody else might have to look that up. It's been a long time since the Bills won a playoff game. I was really hoping, but I like Josh Allen a lot. And for Jake to go there, and Daniel Jeremiah pointed this out, and he does a really nice job for ESPN as well. The bad thing, and you guys heard me say this on Friday, you heard me say it last week, the whole key for a quarterback, any quarterback, is to go to an offense that fits their skill set, or for a team to design their offense around the quarterback. Like right now, Georgia, Kirby's saying we don't know what we have at quarterback. The reason that's alarming is because they need to design their offensive scheme around the quarterback that they've got under center, right? If you got a quarterback with a big arm, you're going to have more vertical routes and deep passes, right? If the guy doesn't, you're going to spread it out and play more West Coast. If the guy's got mobility, you run more bootlegs, more waggles, maybe more RPOs. If he doesn't, you shouldn't, and they tried it with Fromm anyway. But the point of it is Jake is a quote-unquote polar opposite from Josh Allen. So he doesn't even fit what the Bills are doing at quarterback. And Eric brings up a good point about Josh Allen getting hurt. But okay, he's hurt, but now what do you do to the playbook? Jake doesn't have the arm of Josh Allen. He doesn't have the mobility of Josh Allen. Now maybe Brian Daboll, maybe I need him to give him some credit. Maybe they can change the game plan up quickly. But then you've also got the weather factor. And maybe Jake can adjust and play well in bad weather. Against Kentucky, it's not fair to judge him on that game, okay? Because it was cold and rainy and windy, and nobody's going to complete. You can go back and see Tom Brady in those conditions, and he doesn't complete 50, seriously, in the NFL. So nobody throws the ball well. So he shouldn't be judged on that game because nobody throws the ball well in those conditions, much less with the receiving core that Georgia was operating with at that point. But secondly, the hand size, okay? His hands are a little bit on the small side. It's not an issue unless it's an issue. It bothered me more how Jake threw the ball against Texas A&M. You remember that was a wet weather game. Again, not going to say that Jake can't adjust, but even if he adjusts, it is windy. It is an open air stadium in Buffalo. Those winds up there get kicked up. I have been to Rich Stadium. They call it something else now. When I went there, it was Rich Stadium. It doesn't fit. But I'm going to give Jake credit, and I'm not going to write him off, because as disappointed as I was looking at it, like, oh man, there is just, I can't, Eric brought it up, that hey, Josh Allen gets hurt. Okay, so let's say that happens. Matt Barkley's there, but he's in his last year of his contract. Barkley, a former Southern Cal quarterback drafted by the Eagles in the 4th round in 2013, 2014. Never really been a starter. Maybe Jake's being groomed. Jake's got the same agent as Josh Allen. That was something else that kind of bugged me. Like, the agent's like, oh, look at this. I'm going to bring Jake Fromm in here, and he's going to help coach up my main guy. And I hope it's not like that, okay? I'm sure it's not. I'm sure he's thinking, look, Jake, we've got a chance to put you with a club. You're going to get, you're going to learn the ins and outs of an NFL offense. You're going to be with Josh Allen, where you've got good coaching here. This is a good start to your career. At that juncture of the draft, 5th, 6th, 7th round, he's not going in to be the starter anyway. So he's going to be behind somebody. So he might as well go to a good coaching staff. And the Bills have, I believe, a very good foundation. They're not dynamic, but they are a tough team to beat. And you can look at the results from last year. I think that's a good locker room and a good club. So even though I don't like the stadium, I don't like the weather, I don't like the quarterback that he's competing with, and I don't think the offense fits him, I'm not going to write off Jake Fromm, because I watched his interview, and maybe he fooled me, but I don't think so. Jake's attitude is as good and as strong as it has ever been. So the people like me that are worried, that are saying it just can't happen in Buffalo, that is not what Jake Fromm's thinking. He's not going up there to fail, folks. Jake Fromm has done nothing but succeed and win his whole life, okay? That is his mentality going up there. He's not feeling sorry for himself. He's not thinking, I can't do it. He's saying, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to do my best. And if I'm not the starter, then I'm going to help the team get better, and I'm going to run the scout team, because Jake Fromm is not going to give up on that goal to be an NFL starting quarterback. Now, it may not happen in Buffalo. It may not happen behind Josh Allen. But if Jake handles his business like I believe he will get to that second contract. If he has an opportunity to play and he lights it up, great. Maybe a team wants to trade for him or come and get him. But I do believe he's going to take care of his business. He's going to get to that second contract. And I'm on record as saying someday Jake will get that NFL start. He is going to get that start, and he is going to get that opportunity. It may not be in Buffalo. It may not be in the next 2 or 3 years. But knowing what I know about Jake Fromm, I'm not betting against that guy. His attitude the other night when he did those interviews, you can't fake it. The enthusiasm that he showed. His answer with all the critics. And let me say this. It was the most predictable thing in the world when all the fans from Florida and Tennessee, and Auburn, and they all wanted to jump in. All the people that like Justin Fields more than everybody wanted to jump in and crush Jake Fromm when he was slipping in the draft. They couldn't get enough of it. They couldn't tell you enough times. They told you so. He was never that good. Blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the deal. He kicked their you-know-whats for 3 years, and they couldn't beat him on the field, folks. So they're taking shots at him in social media. That is so disappointing and disgusting to me, but it happens, all right? It happens. And Jake weathered it. He answered the question. He knows that negativity is out there. He said the same thing he always said. I know who I am. I know what my God thinks about me, and all I can do is my best. I mean, that's pretty much how Jake approaches it. People go, oh my gosh, he's playing the religion card. No, that is what he thinks. That is what he believes, and there is a power to that. There's a power to that spirituality. If you agree with it, you don't agree with it, doesn't matter. It's what Jake believes, and it's what's gotten him where he's gotten to today. I'll be honest, I just started watching QB1, and I'm just like, where was I at? I should have been watching this. Jake shows more personality, and I'm having more fun watching this doggone QB1 from 3 years ago than I saw Jake in 2 years. And I like Jake, and Jake is funny, but he's even funnier in the QB1. So if you haven't seen it, you've got to see it. And if you don't think Jake's going to make it, that's fine. That's fine. But Twitter's got the old takes exposed, And if you want to drill me because I'm saying he's going to get a start and he's going to get an opportunity, go for it. I'm putting my money on Jake Fromm sticking around and making it. And when I say making it in the NFL, I'm not saying he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to say that he's going to get in that ideal offense that will ever be designed around his skills. I don't know that that's going to happen. It takes some luck for that. Tom Brady needed a little luck. It takes the right guy getting hurt at the right time, and you don't even want to root for that. But listen, I've seen a lot of great quarterbacks, and the fit thing, and I'm not just calling him out because he's in here tonight. Eric Zeier was a guy, when I started covering college football, was an immediate favorite of mine. I went down to field level when they played Auburn, and I watched Eric Zeier at field level, and I was amazed at how he moved his feet, how he found his throwing lanes, how he threw the football. I don't think Eric Zeier got with the right team. I think so much of it has to do with getting in the right situation and getting the right offense built around you. If you don't get that luck, Casey Clausen was a guy I covered at Tennessee. The guy was a 4-year starter. I mean, he was amazing. He's got like the best road record ever. I think he might have lost one game on the road. Threw the most beautiful fade ball, great pocket presence, quick release. Never even got to a game. He goes to the Chiefs because he sees they don't have a backup. He goes there as a free agent after going undrafted. Still not sure why he didn't get drafted. A lot of times when teams start passing on guys, everybody passes going, is there something we don't know? There was nothing they didn't know. But he goes to the Chiefs. It looks like an ideal situation. What happens? Boom, they go out and sign a free agent veteran. What was his name? Brock Heward, I believe, from Washington. And Casey never gets his shot. Never gets into the regular season. Gets cut, and it's over. And suddenly, this 4-time starter from Tennessee, he's still in the record books on some things. He doesn't even make it to the season, right? So Connor Cook, guy cover at Michigan State, winningest quarterback in Michigan State history. Takes him to the Rose Bowl. Connor runs, throws the ball, drop it in a bucket. I'm saying this is Aaron Rodgers right here, right? The second coming. I love his swag. I love his leadership. He goes to the Raiders. They get a new offensive coordinator. They bring in, E.J. Manuel, some other journey veteran quarterback that the offensive coordinator know. And suddenly Connor's not the 2, he's the 3. And the next thing you know, he's gone. And now he's playing the free agent game, chasing teams, chasing Cincinnati, chasing Detroit. And you come in there and they don't have anything invested, so you're not going to get as long a look. Last I knew, Connor was in the XFL. So these are 2 great quarterbacks, Casey Clausen and Connor Cook, that never really got their shot. And it has to do with luck. And then you see other guys, you go, what's this guy doing in here? Well, he was right place, right time, right? Life's kind of like that. And the quarterback position, there can only be one on the field. And so it's hard to manage. And that's the way Kirby Smart explained it when he was asked about Jake dropping. It was kind of a weird year. Nobody wants to say it. People call it excuses. But the fact of the matter is that the Georgia receivers were very inconsistent and they were below par. They were below average in the SEC. They lost their top 5 pass rush from a year ago, and then the first game, you have Kyrus Jackson break his hand. George Pickens doesn't seem to know the offense, didn't even have a catch in the Notre Dame game till mid-season before George really seemed to be in sync. Demetrius Robertson pulls a hamstring. Lawrence Cager, he gets hurt, I believe, end of September, early October. It's a shoulder. He's in, he's out. Second half of South Carolina game, he doesn't play. He plays against Florida, but then gets hurt again. So you got guys in and out. Tommy Bush with the groin, he's out all year. I go down the list. Dominic Blaylock out in the first quarter of the SEC championship. It's as Kirby said best, a merry-go-round of receivers. And Jake can't trust some of these guys to break when they're supposed to, so he's hesitant. So this is screwing up his footwork, it's screwing up his mechanics, and he's not looking like the same guy that he was when he was in sync with his receivers the year before. That's just how it works. If you've ever been a pitcher, right? If you've played baseball and you've been a pitcher and you've got a fastball, if you got a curve, if you don't trust your catcher, you don't throw it the same. All right? You got to have a catcher in baseball that you believe in to throw your stuff. Because that knuckle might get a little crazy. Or that curve might go a little bit crazy. You got to have a catcher to be able to throw the ball with conviction. And there were times when Jake Fromm did not have, it wasn't that he forgot how to play football. Okay? Just be clear on that. So, I'm looking forward to the day. I don't have to defend Jake anymore, but I don't feel like I'm defending as much as I'm explaining it to people. Now, some people believe what they want. They've made up their mind about it. They've already posted 100 times that he wasn't good, and they're not going to change their mind, and that's fine. But for those of you that want to listen and get some insight, that's the truth about Jake Fromm. And I'm not going to bet against him. So moving on, I did want to cover that Jake Fromm. Obviously I had some strong feelings on that. I wish Jake the best. Nothing but respect for him and the class that he showed. And it's not easy to show that much class when you're getting hit like he got hit. And I mean socially on social media, it was really bad. So that's it. Rodrigo Blankenship goes to the Colts. He's going to win the job. That's it. It's done. He's indoor. He'll be on the side of the RCO. Was it not the RCA Dome anymore? Lucas Oil Stadium. Can't you see it with the specs and him on that side of it, right? That's my prediction. Big things ahead for Rodrigo Blankenship. So let's turn the page forward. Let's turn the page forward to 2021 Georgia. And I'm starting to believe more and more and more every day that there's going to be a season, and I will get to that. I've got some information to give you of some things that I was able to pick up on. Again, I should have wrote it already, but I've been knee deep or ankle deep or shoulder deep in the combine, so I'm really excited. I'm going to tell you about that stuff later. But let's look at the 2021 Georgia football team. Are you ready for this? The over-under, I'm going to put this out here. The over-under on Georgia defensive players, that can be selected in the 2021 NFL draft, 8.5. I'm telling you, it's possible you could have 9 guys picked off of that Georgia defense. And that sounds crazy, but think about this. They had the best scoring defense in the country last year, the best run defense in the country, the number 3 total defense in the country, the number 8 pass efficiency defense, and they only had 1 guy drafted. You know why? Because not all, but most of the really good guys are coming back. Now, it's no insult to J.R. Reed. I'm not sure what happened there. I was disappointed and very surprised. J.R. Reed, I think J.R. Reed's an NFL player. I mean, he's got to go there as a free agent and make a team now. I think Tyler Clarke, Tyler's had some injuries though. David Marshall, some injuries. Waiting to find out where Michael Barnett goes. Really hope Michael gets into a camp. Michael has worked so hard and looks so good. He just needs a chance. But getting back to my point, so many of the great players came back. And here, I'm going to go down the list. And you'll agree with me because you hear, Mike, 9 guys off the defense? Georgia's never even had 9 guys taken in one draft, much less off one side of the ball. The record is 8, right? They've had 7 each of the last 2 years. And I'm telling you that they could have 9 guys picked off that defense next year. And here's who they are. Safety, Richard LeCounte. Already, I got some odds. I don't know. These online odds places send us these emails. I don't even know if you can bet on it. But it's entertaining. And they're saying Richard LeCounte is one of the top 5 defensive players who could be selected to be the first defensive player picked in the draft. Okay, I think we all agree. I think we would all agree universally that Richard LeCounte will be drafted next year, barring an injury. I think we all agree with that. All right, that's one. Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes are the 2 fastest guys on the team. They're also both draft eligible. They're both also excellent cornerbacks. Campbell would be the highest pick in my mind because he has the measurables. We see how much the NFL loves these measurables. Tyson Campbell is a long, fast guy who was having a great, not a good season, was having a great season. David Green, another great example, Eric Grant, of a quarterback that wasn't in the right system. Thank you very much. Tyson Campbell, they're going to fall in love with him at the combine. He was having a fantastic start to this last season. I was so disappointed when he had the foot injury. I kept waiting. I kept asking Kirby every week, when's he going to be back? When's he going to be back? But Kirby, those foot injuries, they're tricky. They're hard. And if a corner doesn't feel like he can cut and move, it's like a racehorse with a bad wheel. You just can't be out there playing cornerback without your wheels. Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes. I think we all agree both those guys will be drafted in the NFL. Pause for green tea. You just joined us. I have a little bit of a cough. My allergies have been bothering me. A little stickiness, a little nasal drip in the throat. See, don't freak out. And then DJ Daniel, he'll be a senior. When Campbell went down, DJ Daniel stepped into the starting lineup, did a very good job, came up with a big PBU against Notre Dame in the final minute, right? Sealed that win, and just played tough. He's a guy that will knock your block off. I think DJ Daniel is another guy. So we're talking about 4 guys. In fact, Connor Riley has a story up on Dog Nation right now about how Georgia's secondary next year could kind of be like the Great Wall was this year with all these guys getting picked. No, William, no alcohol for me. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a lightweight. I drink green tea a lot. All right, I'm not gonna get into the green tea discussion with you right now. So we've got 4 guys: Richard LeCounte, Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, and DJ Daniel, that I think we all agree are going to be picked. All right, Monty Rice, middle linebacker. Monty Rice, 3-year starter, tough guy. I think we feel good about that. So now we're up to 5. Now here's a guy that I think will go early. He may not go, but he could go, and he could go early. Oh, my voice is starting to crack. Sorry about that. And that is redshirt sophomore Azeez Ojulari. It's his 3rd year. I think he's a dynamic player. I think he's going to finish. He led the team with like 35 or 36 pressures. I think he's going to finish more of those and get more sacks. So I've got Azeez as number 6. Jermaine Johnson's a senior. He was the number 1 JUCO player a couple of years ago. You remember Kirby Smart said he was making Superman plays last spring. Jermaine had an ankle. I don't know what his health status was. Not sure if he was ever really 100. And they rotate those guys a lot anyway. But I think Jermaine Johnson is another guy. So we're up to 7. Adam Anderson, I don't know. He was a guy that I heard was having a great offseason, so I'm saying he could. I'm not going to count him, though. But he is an incredible pass rusher off the edge and 3rd down guy. Jordan Davis at nose tackle. Look, absolutely. Jordan is a phenomenal athlete at that size. Great footwork, great power. Another great year of coaching. So he's number 8. Malik Herring is a senior defensive end. PFF ranks him as the highest ranked returning defensive lineman in the SEC. So is that 9? Did I just get to 9? Here we go. LeCounte, Campbell, Stokes, Daniel, Rice, Ojulari, Johnson, Davis, Herring. I'm at 9, and I still have Julian Rochester left to go. Remember, Julian Rochester was a starter 2 years ago, but last year was coming off the knee. Probably could have played, but wouldn't have been 100%. And Georgia had enough depth with all those seniors that Kirby did the best thing for Julian, and Julian did the best thing for Georgia. So there we go. There's my 9. Now what about offense? Okay, offense doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as good. Why? Well, because of the 7 guys that were drafted this year, 6 of them played offense. So here's the guys that could go. You've got a few seniors. Justin Schaefer's an offensive guard, maybe. You've got Jamie Newman, who definitely, I think, is a draftable guy. I know that the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy, who I'm going to have on Tuesday, I'm going to have Jim Nagy on, former scout with the Seahawks, Packers, and Patriots, now the Senior Bowl executive director. Going to have him on Tuesday. Jamie Newman's already on the Senior Bowl radar. Demetrius Robertson, I don't know. Is he going to be healthy? To me, the hamstring. The first year it was the conditioning and playing behind a lot of experienced and really good physical receivers. This year I thought Demetrius Robertson got physical, tough. Remember, he was injured and missed the spring game. Something weird happened there. Never really got the story on that. Somebody said he was sick or something. But then I thought the hamstring. And, again, remember we talked about the racehorses and Tyson Campbell with the bad foot. And, a speed position like that, you just cannot, at least certainly not Robertson. His whole key is his speed. He has elite track speed. Hoping for a very healthy Demetrius Robertson, because we saw at Cal what he could do. He was a freshman All-American with over 700 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns as a true freshman. Okay, so... and in this particular offense, I think he will be very dangerous, because I see Monken spreading it out more multi-receiver sets, more throws into space, a little bit more West Coast, a little bit more efficiency, whereas Jay could go downfield a little bit more. I think you're going to see Jamie Newman with some short, tight throws, every now and then stretch it out. But I think this could be a big year for Demetrius Robertson. Some juniors that could go pro, Jamari Salyer. He came in as the number 1 guard in the country. I think he could be playing left tackle this year. We'll wait and see. Trey Hill is the center. I'd like to see Trey stay through his senior year. Trey has that veteran senior Lamont Galliard feel to him. James Cook, a junior running back. He's another guy. Someone brought up Zamir White. Great point. Who is that? I'm having a hard time between Deke. Good call. Zamir White is a 3rd-year sophomore. When you've had an injury, think about this. I didn't even mention Ben Cleveland. He's another senior that could go. Wait to see how Ben works out after this offseason. Remember, he missed the bowl game. So got to see what version of Ben do you get back. I don't know what we're going to see from Ben Cleveland. But Zamir White, when you've had an injury and Zamir's had 2 knees. Now I want you to think about something. This is his earnings potential. This is his ability to take care of his family. Zamir White is a guy that if he can go, needs to go. He doesn't need to stick around and risk another knee. And when you've had 2 knees like he has, and you've worked as hard as he has worked, he needs to get to the NFL and he needs to get that paycheck. That's my opinion, okay? Because of where Zamir comes from, because of what he's done, because he's what he's been through. I wouldn't count on 2 more years from Zamir White if he has a good season, and we're all hopeful that he does. I thought Zamir looked better in the Sugar Bowl than he did at any point during the season. You hear so often, it's not just getting back physically, it's getting back mentally. When you've had a knee and you think you can do it, you have that little bit of doubt. And I remember sitting in Lawrence Cager's apartment in Miami before he came to Georgia, and Lawrence was telling me, you know, Mike, I thought I was back. I thought I was back that year, but I really wasn't. I wasn't myself. I had just enough doubt. And in football, you can have 0 doubt. There is no time to be second guessing. There's no time to be worried about getting hurt. There's no time to be wondering if your body can sustain the hit. Just like a running back, when you hit that line at 100 miles an hour, you've got to believe you're Superman. And when you've got a shoulder like Swift had, I remember Jamal Lewis, even one of the most powerful guys I've ever been around. When Jamal had a shoulder, he was a shadow of himself. You've got to believe that you are Superman on the football field to be effective. And when you've had these injuries, it's really hard to get that mindset back. So I give Zamir White a ton of credit for all the hard work that he's gone through. I liked seeing the wiggle. You know, he'd been running a lot of straight line running, and I said, gosh, he's such a bull in a china shop. Does he not have the vision? It wasn't that he didn't have the vision. It's just that he wasn't ready to trust the cut. He wasn't ready to trust the instinct. There was still that doubt. And against Baylor, I saw some of those cuts. And I saw Zamir starting to go towards the daylight instead of keeping it on the straight and narrow. So I have a lot of hope for Zamir White. He needs to work on his hands, needs to work on his pass catching. It's going to be really big. Got to catch the football in this offense, man. You got to be able to catch the football. There's so much good talent in that backfield now. Kendall Milton, a guy, Kenny McIntosh, and then there's a lot of talent in that backfield. Zamir's got to work on his pass catching and continue to work out, get those instincts back, and be able to trust himself. He could be headed to the NFL. Matt Landers, I know a lot of you go, oh, Matt Landers. Look, I know Matt was inconsistent last year. I know he made a mistake in the South Carolina game, okay? Cost an interception. I understand that. But let me tell you, when Matt Landers jogs by you on the field and you see this guy, he is, you think Kendall Milton is it. Matt Landers looks like an NFL receiver. I mean, the body, the prototypical size. He has speed. He has the ability. He just didn't have the consistency. And Kirby told us that last spring. Kirby, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was almost like he's a guy that teases you because he makes these great plays and then he has drops that he shouldn't have. All that is repetition and maturity. And if Matt Landers is ready to take that step and ready to jump through that flaming hoop, then he has a chance to be a very good receiver. Remember that catch he had in the Sugar Bowl, the touchdown catch. It was a good catch. Now, it got to his body. Need to see Matt catch the ball more with his hand. That's Jugs machine, man. That's all that is. Matt Landers has a chance to be special. He's another junior. So, I'm going to, I'm going to detour. I'm going to detour my green tea story real quick while I catch my breath. I've got a question, and I want an honest answer. So, we've got a Jittery Joe's here, and I drove my car. I hadn't driven my car for a week. I'm quarantining. My opinion is, hey, if they want to open it up, that's fine, but that doesn't mean I have to go out. If some people are ready to, all the power to them. I'll decide when I'm ready to, but I got to drive my car once a week, or the battery goes dead and all that. So I go into town and I go to the Jittery Joe's, and they've got this tropical green tea. Love tropical green tea. Didn't think I'd like it. Love it. You guys know I like green tea. Well, I got it in the Jittery Joe's cup. It was a large. So is it okay to use the tea bags more than once? I got a double bag. And this is the second time. So I just took the tea bag because I don't have the tropical green tea at home. Tea bags twice. Okay to use them? Is it okay? I want to see some answers. Is it okay to use the tea bags twice? People are like, Griff, we're not playing this game. The heck with you. I'm going to use the tea bags twice anyway, at least when it's the tropical green tea. Moving on now to college football. Where are we at? So last week, this caught my ear. Thank you, Brian. Thank you Thank you, Jonathan. I don't feel like a loser or a weirdo. Mike Gay says coffee 2 times a day. Thank you. I'm getting the responses now. Everybody is cool with this. It's not as strong. Yes, it's not about the tough times. Okay. Thank you for playing along with me there and making me feel normal, because someone called me out and said, tropical tea twice. Really, Mike, you're going to use the tea bag? Yeah, I'm going to use them again because I'm not going to drive back to, okay. So this caught my attention. Now, last week we talked about this because I've been like cyber stalking, radio stalking Greg Sankey. Anytime Greg Sankey talks, I listen. I find it. I want to find the audio. I want to see the quotes, because Greg Sankey is like Kirby Smart. He gets to the point. He's transparent, and he says what he means and means what he says. And so I've been listening very carefully to Greg Sankey. And we discussed last week, you might remember, we talked about it on the show, could there be a season, a college football season, if not all the teams are present? For example, we've seen the Los Angeles mayor say that there may not be any events in Los Angeles till January 1st. Well, that would include UCLA and USC. And we know that California has been leaning towards the more restrictive lockdown state. Listen, and to each their own. I'm not here to judge, okay? There are people in power. They make the rules. My job is to follow them. So I'm not judging here. But if California says we're not opening up our schools, then that means they're not playing football. So could the Pac-12 move forward without those 4 Pac-12 teams? So that was a question. And Greg Sankey was asked that in a roundabout way 10 days ago. What if, could there be? And Greg Sankey said something to the effect of, if it's a niche, smaller group, or if most people are on board. Greg Sankey made it very clear they want everybody to be on board, ideally, but he said there would be some room for discussion, i.e. he's not ruling it out. So when South Carolina Athletic Director Ray Tanner was quoted by Josh Kendall of The Athletic, and forgive me, but it's important to throw this attribution out there, because when you report, it's like growing your own crop. And if I'm going to borrow their information and share it, I need to tell you who did the work to get it. That's a professional courtesy, and Josh Kendall is a friend of mine, and I know he works very hard. And he quoted Ray Tanner in The Athletic saying that conferences might not be aligned when it comes to bringing football back. So Ray Tanner, the South Carolina AD, told the South Carolina Board of Directors that conferences might not be aligned. In other words, that discussion is taking place. Sankey holds almost daily, it had been daily, but almost daily teleconferences with his athletic directors every week. Greg Sankey, and you can learn a little bit about coronavirus and what other decision makers are going through just by listening to how Greg Sankey is doing this. It's so it makes you want to vote Greg Sankey for president. The guy is so dang thorough. He's almost presidential when you think about it. But anyway, so that made me say, aha, this is why Greg Sankey said there was room for discussion, because in fact it has been discussed. We knew it had. And Ray Tanner saying, look, we're ready to go. This may happen. So that was interesting. That was insightful to me. That advanced the theory that yes, there could be a college football season that doesn't have all 130 or 131 FBS members, right? Don't know how it would work. They'd have to do some things with the schedule, but that is a potential, that is a possibility right now. The Washington Post reported that Purdue is gearing up for in-person school this fall. They, quote, intend to accept students on campus in typical numbers this fall, sober about certain problems that COVID-19 represents, but determined not to surrender helplessly to those difficulties, but to tackle and manage them aggressively and creatively, Purdue President Mitchell Daniels wrote. People are getting ready to move forward. They're planning to move forward. Now, Greg Sankey has said the virus and where our society is at will ultimately dictate when we come back. But you're hearing more people make plans to return. Mike DeCourcy, Sporting News, quotes Missouri Interim Chancellor Mun Wai Chow announcing in a letter to the Missouri community that the school's plan is to, quote, bring our beautiful campus to life once it is possible. Missouri anticipates returning in-person classes this fall. So the fact that they're talking about it, right? You've got to talk about it. You've got to plan for it. That's what gets the wheel turning. And I thought Greg Sankey made a very good analogy on the Paul Feinbaum show last week. He said, it's kind of like when the old fluorescent light days, when you flick the light switch on and the light kind of flickers a little bit and then it warms up and it comes. That's what the return's going to be like. So in Georgia today, as I was driving to get the tropical green tea from the wonderful Jittery Joe's Cafe, free pub for Jittery Joe. They do a great job. You want to help the community. And I like tropical green tea. There's people out and about, right? You guys know Georgia's open certain things. I went to the drive-thru. I didn't go in. But there's people out and about. I did go to the park to walk. I kept the 6-foot rule. But there were people everywhere, okay? People are getting stir crazy. It's starting to happen. I don't know the effects. Again, I'm not passing judgment. I'm not going to say they should. They should, to me, each their own. Governors have to do what's best for their respective state. They have far more information and data than I do to make these decisions. They've got political responsibilities. Again, it's very complex. Every state is different. One size does not fit all, just as one size does not fit all for us as individuals and what we decide to do. You can say open it up, but I'm not ready to go to the movies yet. That's just me. So, point being, it's being discussed. I thought Greg Sankey had a great analogy with the light flickering on. That's starting to happen. Now, we're going to continue to study these numbers. Doctors and scientists are going to continue to study the trends. But Sankey brought up that he talked to a biostatistician. I think, is that the word that he used? I got to really listen, because when I'm listening to Sankey and I'm transcribing, it's like I'm back in college taking notes again. Remember that? I just started recently getting over those bad dreams about missing class and failing classes. And now I'm back covering Greg Sankey, Professor Sankey. And everything he says, again, you got to just really listen, because he doesn't waste words. It's just, he's so specific. But he was talking, let's see if I can find this here. Yes, excuse me. Here's his quote. I was on the phone with a biostatistician 9 days ago, and she's a faculty member at the University of South Carolina. And she said there's two really important pieces of information that we don't have. One, how many people had COVID-19 right now? And two, how many people have had it? And that's important because we're going to learn more as we go forward about what is actually happening. We don't have all the data around us. That's Sankey's message. That's been his message all the way through. He has said his mission statement is to stay on point and have football going by Labor Day weekend. He hopes that fans can be there. There may be some provisions in mind, with social distancing, testing. I saw recently someone said you might have to have a certificate saying, I don't know. Temperature guns where people take your time. I'm sure we'll see that in government buildings. But listening to this, we always hear sports as a microcosm of our society. It really is. Because listening to how Sankey and the collegiate athletic programs and campuses are discussing how to get their students back on campus, that's very similar to a lot of us in terms of how do we get back in our offices and go to work? How do we get people back functioning again? It's the same problem, albeit in a more limited arena. And so listening to the decision-making, but the whole key with Sankey, and he makes this point over and over again, is they do not have to decide right now, okay? College football has a margin, all right? They don't really have to be, in my mind, I think they could get on campus September 1, practice for a month, and then have October, November, 8-game season, conference championship. That would be, like, to me, the minimum for getting college football back this fall. But they're still saying, okay, look, we want to have it regular. So, like, Sankey's still talking about SEC Media Days. They're scheduled for Atlanta, middle of July. I'm hoping to go there. I was among those disappointed that, the spring meetings got canceled the end of May, and it's down in Destin. Everybody goes, oh, you want to go to the beach? I don't even go to the beach, okay? I just like being around Sankey and all the ADs and football coaches and other beat guys and really kind of seizing and hearing what the issues are, because every year there's issues. Like, I won't forget 2 years ago, Nick Saban telling everybody, hey, if we do the transfer thing, it's going to turn into free agency. And he was absolutely right. I'll never forget the advice that I gave you guys from Kirby Smart. I'll say it again because it's so good. Someone said, Kirby, how hard was it to... He said, I'm not going to let the Alabama national championship game, I'm not going to let it beat me twice. You make mistakes in life, you don't let it beat you twice. You learn from it, you move on. If you let it affect you again, then you're losing twice, 3 times, 4 times. It's almost like making the same mistake again, right? If you let it affect you. So you learn a lot when you get in a room with those coaches and they're able to go a little off, Kirby talked about quarterbacks. He talked about the challenges of having 2 quarterbacks, how he tries to sell parents and say, look, maybe your kid can go somewhere else and play faster, but at Georgia, you're going to get an opportunity to play in this pro-style system. You're going to get better coaching and better developed. Colleges don't care. Jake Fromm proves it. They don't care if you played 3 years. You can only play 1 year. They're going to be able to evaluate you on that 1 year. Okay, more is not always better. People say, and listen, there's people that have different opinions. Maybe Jake should have come back. And I say it again. If a guy doesn't think he should come back, then he shouldn't come back. You can't come back against your gut. You can't be there when you don't really want to be there. You're not going to function effectively. You can't stay because you're scared of what might happen. Jake Fromm is not going to get any better with a 4th year at Georgia. He's just not. He could play in a different offense. He could put up better numbers. He might throw the ball incrementally better. I don't know. But the guy is already at the top of his game, intellectually, football IQ. And so Jake did what he had to do. And so there we go. I didn't mean to start that conversation again, but I just did. So mowing the grass. So here's the thing about these allergies, which I didn't really know that I had. I got 3 options here. This is the way I figure it. Because I really wanted to go out and mow today. And I said, look, don't be stupid. You went out and walked. You want to get rid of this cough. Okay, so I went out and bought the lawnmower and was loving mowing my lawn, loving life, out there mowing the lawn, got a nice electric mower. And now I discover I get allergies. So do I, continue to, because now I've invested. I feel like I'm invested like $600. If you pay somebody to do your lawn, that's expensive. I got to at least get, so do I continue to mow the lawn this summer, fight through it? B, do I start getting somebody else to mow the lawn and go to the allergist? Or C, just give it up. Just pay somebody to do the lawn. You got allergies. Georgia fans want me writing stories instead and doing more of these live things, so don't do lawn anymore. I'm thinking I'm probably going to keep doing the lawn. I feel a responsibility. There's just something fundamental. It takes like 35 minutes to mow, So I'm going to get past this. Maybe it's a seasonal allergy. I'm telling myself that maybe there's this rare plant out there, some flower blooming just this time of year, and it's going to be gone in a month. Because I've been over allergies for like 30 years. All right. You know what? I meant to share this live chat on my personal Facebook page. It's probably good I didn't, because when I do that, then the Tennessee and Michigan State people come out of the woodwork. Because I've got a lot of Facebook friends from Michigan and Tennessee, because I covered those programs for a long time. And they were good to me. Had some really good times covering both of those programs. Covered Auburn too, but that was before Facebook and the internet. Man, am I old, right? Okay, so I'm in the process right now of sharing this to my personal page. We got it on the Dog Nation page, but I like to try and share it around a little bit and get some more viewers and some people that get a chance to check in, and they get to hear about Georgia football, and they want to know about Georgia football. They just don't know it yet. They need to know about Georgia football. Georgia football is happening right now. Georgia football has invested, what? You guys know better than me, $170 million, $180 million into facilities since Kirby Smart's been the head coach. They got the I'm doing it right now, college football and NFL draft. All right, getting ready to go. All right, let's see if the Tennessee and Michigan State people come waiting in here. Lottie Lauderdale, thanks for the share. I appreciate the shares. I hope more people check in. I like to do these on Friday night and Sunday night, and then Tuesday, like in the 12:30 hour, I have a produced show. I think it's going to be this week. I think it's going to go like 11:45 to 1:15, and I'm trying to get Isaac Nauta. Hopefully Isaac can go in that window. And Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl Executive Director, and the former Jeff Armstead. Give me some good advice there. Jan Armstead. It's the grass pound. Okay, thank you for telling me that. I've got this Bermuda grass in the front yard. It's really weird. It's short. It's almost like you mow it. It's like dusty. It's like, what the? I have not lived in a dry heat like this. No, wait a minute. I want to be careful here. This is a very humid and hot place. So I wouldn't, it's not Arizona, okay? But both Tennessee and Michigan have more precipitation. But the lawn here is like dry, so it's kind of bizarre. So yes, thank you for sharing this. That helps me out. It helps us out. We have sponsors. Obviously, people pay attention to viewership and things like that. I do my topics based on what I know and what I feel is important. So I knew coming into tonight that I was going to talk about the NFL draft and where the Georgia guys went. I knew I wanted to include some of those other SEC players that we all know of. I knew I wanted to talk about the Georgia guys this year and the Georgia guys next year. And then I wanted to tell you because I'm going to write these stories. I mean, I'm going to write a story tomorrow morning about Georgia guys coming out. I'm going to write a story, about what Greg Sankey said, as we move forward. I'll probably write a story about Jermaine Johnson this week. So that's what I know. Take a deep breath. So guys, what do we got? Let me take a look at your comments. If you've got comments or questions, now is a good time to ask because we're at 9:10. William Gleaton, does it hurt recruiting with some of our guys not getting drafted but going as undrafted free agents? Yes and no. Yes, people pay attention to how many recruits go from a school into the NFL. But if a guy makes the team, it just goes to show you that, at Georgia, you're built right, you're prepared properly. So, the short answer is yes, it does hurt. Obviously LSU is going to be telling everybody, hey, look how many guys we had drafted. Come here and we can do this for you. Okay, whatever. Not going to happen. I'm already saying that I don't think LSU is going to win another national title under Ed Orgeron. Just don't. And I shouldn't. I always say something that I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to say it. Did anybody else notice every time? Not every time. Back up. Let me rephrase this. That was not a good start. Did anybody else notice how many LSU players had disciplinary issues? He didn't play the first half of the year because blah blah blah. They were involved in this, but they weren't arrested. There was a lot. There was a lot, and I'm thinking to myself, these dudes. I mean, Kirby has kicked people out that weren't even charged for stuff. And I'm not saying Georgia's perfect or ivory tower or anything like that. I am saying that I do think LSU let a lot of guys stick around. Good thing that they had this year because I just don't. It's and I give Orgeron credit for managing that team. And I've covered teams that have had some disciplinary issues before. I mean, Tennessee that wasn't nearly as bad. So how about this? So the Florida writers were the ones that came up with the Fulmer Cup because they didn't want you looking at the Florida guys that got in trouble. I mean, they just totally buffaloed Tennessee into this. They're like, oh, Philip Fulmer has all these guys. Not really. I mean, he had some guys in the mid-'90s, but this was when I covered the team in 98. And William Gleaton, thank you. They don't love criminals, but like Trey Wingo was talking about this guy, and I can't remember which one. And, he had these problems at such and such, and he better realize in the NFL. And I'm going, don't even give me that. Don't even give me that. Don't pretend like the NFL, if these guys are violent or have issues. No, they really don't. They give these guys second and third chance. And I'm not going to say that they should. Again, I don't want to judge it, but don't tell me it's one way when it's not. Let's not pretend that the NFL is any more stringent than college, because the fact of the matter is it's not. In college, you can get accused of a crime and you get kicked off the team before there's even a trial and jury, right? In the NFL, it's like, well, we're waiting, we're gathering information, we're going to let this go to, trial and, So I don't want to hear that. Anyway, so there we go. No reason to get on a long rant about that. People have problems. People need second chances. Some places are more lenient than others. Not everybody is the same. But yes, William, they do want players that have an ability to get violent quickly and strong and interdominant individuals. Okay, we're running out of time here. Questions? Nathaniel Holsley wants to know, or makes the statement, that Georgia has a great chance to win a national championship if they let Jamie Newman play. Well, Nathaniel, here's the deal with Kirby. He's going to make you win it. He's going to make you win it. He's going to make you win it on the field, and it's not going to be on your metrics. It's not going to be on your 40. It's not going to be on your arm strength. He's going to put you in scrimmage situations, and he's going to see if you're able to move the ball. He's going to see if you can get the team in the end zone, and he's going to see what type of leader you are. And I know this because that whole Justin Fields, Jake Fromm thing was chronicled so closely. He lets it play out on the field. If there's one thing that Kirby does especially well, and other coaches don't necessarily do this, is he lets it play out. Remember we were talking about Greg Sankey a moment ago, about how Greg Sankey's talking about how the SEC is preparing for all these different scenarios, and yet Greg Sankey is very much aware. In fact, he said he was in a conference call with a 2-star general, and the general's advice was something to the effect of, get all the information you possibly can before you make a decision. That's where the SEC is at right now. That's where Kirby is at with his quarterbacks. He's very thorough. It's a process. He doesn't have to decide the starting quarterback right now. He doesn't have to decide it the first week of camp. He doesn't have to decide it until kickoff. You better believe he's going to have at least 2 guys ready. All you got to do is look back at 2017. Jacob Eason goes down in the opener, and Jake Fromm steps in and leads him to a national championship game appearance and an SEC title. So having the number 2 guy, he's seen that happen. And he knows as a defensive coordinator and a defensive-minded coach, you knock that first guy out, that second guy can beat you. Hello, Alabama, right? So Lottie, thank you very much for the kind comments. You missed my backyard loud voice and my possum. I don't miss the possums, okay? I'm sure the neighbors don't miss it. The only reason that I'm not outside tonight is because it was very windy. And the camera can pick up wind and the audio is not good. So I said, okay, I'm going back on the couch again. I did the couch thing Friday because I was watching the NFL draft with all of you. And that was great. We went till after midnight. Not so great that Jake Fromm didn't get picked because that kind of upset a lot of people and it created a lot of controversy. But, we went like an hour and 40 minutes the other night. Betty Schuler. Betty, what are you telling me, Betty? Are you telling me I need to stop? Is Betty telling me I need to stop? Is that what's going on there? Wow. Every now and then you get those comments and you just go, I'm sorry, Betty. I'm going to keep going. Any other comments? Any other questions? Anybody want to talk NFL draft, next year's draft, off season, more on the college game? Do you think, would it diminish a national championship if the state of California schools weren't in it? Would you have to put an asterisk next to it? See, I don't think so, because I think as long as the playing field is level for everyone, and it already kind of isn't, because some teams got more spring drills in. I mean, Clemson pretty much got all their spring in except for their spring game. A lot of those teams out west got more spring in. I want to say Tennessee might have got 1 or 2 practices. But as long as it's a level playing field, and that was one of the things Greg Sankey talked about, is trying to get everybody back at the same time this summer. So that's going to be kind of interesting. Thanks for the compliment, Nathaniel. Someone asked me again on Jake going so late. We talked about it earlier in the program, but my take was this. Based on, and I defer to Chris Mortensen. He's an NFL reporter, and he had some access to some information that I didn't. So I'm going to defer to what he said, and that is that the 2 teams that had the most interest in Jake Fromm, probably because of their scheme, their offense, were the Indianapolis Colts and the New Orleans Saints. And I can totally see that. They're both indoor stadium teams. They run offenses I think Jake Fromm would be comfortable in. So when those teams went in another direction, the Colts picking Jacob Eason in the 4th round, and the Saints didn't have very many picks at all. I think they only had 2 or 3 picks. When they went in another direction, Jake was going to be somebody's, plan C or plan D. He wasn't going to be brought in to be weaned into the system. He was going to be brought in to be the backup and carry the clipboard and know the offense. And so at first I was disappointed about Buffalo because he's nothing like Josh Allen, and I don't think he fits the offense. But after hearing Jake talk and hearing his attitude towards it, I'm believing that Jake Fromm is going to be able to make it work. When you've got the right attitude, and I've had players, it doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. I see Tara Carroll's watching. Tara was a girl that played softball for me, and she played college ball. And she's a great example of what I'm talking about. When you coach an athlete, and you know that athlete has the right mindset, you count on them. So this Tara Carroll girl that you're watching, like, who's this? Unbelievable hitter. She's the reason I had to go to like those softy balls in practice. I used to pitch. I used to pitch the rig. She hit the ball so dang hard, I was like, no, I'm going with the softy, spongy balls now. But when you've got an athlete that you can count on to do the job that you know is going to be focused, there's a value to that. And that's Jake Fromm. there's going to be a value. There's not going to be a question about whether or not Jake's going to be ready. There's not going to be a question about whether or not Jake knows the offense, okay? And there's a value to that, and that's why he's going to stick around. Jake's not going to get distracted. Jake's not going to get some money in his pocket and turn into another guy and be doing the Buffalo dance a la Nina Cherry in downtown Buffalo. I mean, Jake may go out and hunt every now and then and go kill some animals and then pray to God and ask for forgiveness. But Jake is not going off the rails, folks. Jake is a competitor. Jake has been raised for this. He's been on a rail. And in his mind, this is just tough circumstance. He's going to pray about it, and he's going to do his best. And the Bills know what they're getting. They're getting a guy they can trust. You can trust Jake Fromm. I think the physical stuff can come. Jake's going to keep working on it. He's going to keep working on the mechanics. He's going to work out harder than he's ever worked out. You can go back, watch QB1. He had body cramps. That's just how he's built. He's a safe pick. So that's my thought about Jake. Not an ideal situation, but Jake brings an ideal attitude to it. And Jake is an ideal player in the sense that he's very resilient, okay? It takes a lot to get Jake Fromm off his game. That's why I was so surprised, and there's Monty Rice. We've asked Jake Fromm about Monty Rice before, and Jake's like, every now and then Monty just hits you. And I'm like, hey, Monty, Monty Rice, captain, a defensive captain. We talked about him earlier. One of the guys I said that's going to be picked next year. Tough guy, leader. It's going to set a tone. But getting back to the Jake Fromm question, Buffalo knows what they're getting. It was a value pick. Now, I wrote a headline, might have been a little harsh, and some people didn't like it. I said, look, Buffalo didn't even really want Jake, but they saw too much value. And what I meant by that was they had not planned on picking a quarterback. That was not a plan for them to draft another quarterback. They got Matt Barkley. But the GM sees Jake Fromm sitting there and goes, there's some value to that. I need to jump on this. I need to grab this guy. This is something. There's going to be value to this. And so that's why they took him. Now, again, for me, I wish Jake would have gone here. I wish Jake, would have been. But again, it doesn't matter what I think. Jake Fromm's a tough guy. Now, his family might have, like somebody asked him, how hard was it? How hard was it for Jake Fromm to sink in the draft? And you know what Jake Fromm said? He said it was hard on my parents. Not him. That's Jake. He's worried about everybody else in the room, right? After the Kentucky game, we say to Jake Fromm, how hard was it to hear those boos? And he talks about his teammates. You're not going to get Jake Fromm down, okay? You need to understand that, because as nice and polished and clean as he is tougher than nails to the core. He is built for this. You have to understand that. We all thought, oh, Jake, he's losing his confidence. What does he do down in Florida? Season on the line. Everybody's talking about Kyle Trask. Everybody's talking about Dan Mullen and how Dan Mullen has recreated offense. And I go on the Feinbaum show, and Feinbaum's calling me out and making fun of me on his show. And I say, Paul, George is not going away, man. And I think to myself, if Georgia loses, I'm going to get hammered on this. But I knew they weren't, because I saw the focus. And I talked to the guys that week, and you can just tell. And Jake goes out there, and what was he, 12 of 18 on third down conversions? And Lawrence Cage rises from the dead. He's been out. We're not sure if he's going to play. Not only does he play, it's 7 catches for 132 yards. Florida doesn't score a touchdown until the fourth quarter. Now, Kirby tells us the defense didn't change. Come on, Kirby. I don't call Kirby out much, but it sure did look like those DBs were playing a little bit further off the ball. Still, they won the game. It's measured. It's smart. You trade time for yardage. It's just what you do. We saw it against Auburn as well. Kirby knows how to manage a football game. You have to understand that. And the people that don't understand that, they Griff, Kirby's smart. He's never going to get excuse me. He's been a head coach 4 years. He's 44 years old, okay? Here's some numbers for you. Nick Saban, fabulous coach. Right now, he's the GOAT, right? I mean, Nick Saban is innovative. He's smart. He coached Kirby up. Kirby was his field general, his number 2. With Kirby Smart as his defensive coordinator for 8 years, Alabama won 4 national titles in the 8 years that Kirby Smart was the defensive coordinator. There's been 5 years for Nick Saban in Alabama where Kirby Smart wasn't the defensive coordinator. They've won 1, and it was a fluke. And I'm sorry, it was. 2nd and 26 should have never happened. 9 times out of 10, that guy's not breaking assignment, okay? And I'm going to give Tua credit because he's magical, he's spiritual. I told you he's got charisma. I love this guy. Love Tua. total mad respect for Tua. Magical moment for Alabama. But that's the only title that Nick's won without Kirby Smart as a D coordinator. All right, so think about that. Kirby Smart has already won an SEC title. Kirby Smart has played in 3 straight SEC championship games in the East. You know the last coach to do that? Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier was the greatest coach in the SEC of the 1990s. I still remember the comparisons between Spurrier and Paul Bear Bryant. And we thought it was sacrilegious in Alabama. They'd make those comparisons and, oh my gosh, would the fans trip out. And I would, oh my gosh, you can't say that. There's only one Paul Bear Bryant. But we really went there. And now it's Saban. So now when people start talking about Dabo Swinney compared to Saban or Kirby Smart, the Alabama fan, oh, you can't, Listen, when Nick Saban was 44 years old, I was there. Okay? So here's the story. So I was working for the Mobile Register. And I was the Alabama beat writer. And I'm trying to remember here. Okay, so I think this was 1996. Let me make sure here. No, it was not 1996. It was 1995 Michigan State football. All right, so it's 1995. It's my second year on the Alabama beat, and Alabama's on probation and can't go to a bowl game. So they won like 9 games. So I tell my sports editor, and thank goodness, and I've got a boss right now that's like this too, BJ Sweeney. I love these sports editors that are just like, they wind me up and they just let me go. And I go, let me go do this. And they go, okay, we trust you, go do it. So it's 1995, and I tell my sports editor, hey, John, I want to go cover the Independence Bowl, and then I want to cover the Sugar Bowl. He said, you're going to do what? I said, I'm going to drive from Mobile, Alabama to Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm going to cover the game, and then I'm going to drive to New Orleans and cover the Sugar Bowl on January 1st. I'm going to do that for the Mobile Register. They were paying 23 cents a mile. How much harm could it be? So I drove up to the end because I wanted to see Michigan State, a school I went to play, or a school I went to journalism school at. I wanted to see Michigan State play LSU and Nick Saban, right? Or no, Michigan State was coached by Nick Saban, and LSU was coached by Jerry DiNardo, who I really liked a lot and still like, does great work with the Big Ten Network. So I drove up to Shreveport, and I watched 44-year-old Nick Saban get beat by Jerry DiNardo 45-26. So if you want to know where Nick Saban was when he was 44, he was coaching in his first game as an FBS head coach, and he was losing 45-26 to Jerry DiNardo and LSU. That's what Nick Saban did when he was 44. Nick Saban did not even win a bowl game as an FBS head coach until he was 49 years old. Folks, Kirby's 44. Think about it. Now, I'm not going to predict that Kirby's going to be coaching when he's 67. In fact, I'm going to predict that he's not going to be coaching. But when people start talking about Kirby Smart, I just say, guys, he's 4 years into this. He just got through his first cycle of players. He's just now getting facilities that are on par with the rest of the SEC. 24/7 did a study on this. Georgia's facilities were ranked 8th in the league. 8th. Think about this now. 8th in the league. They're putting up an $81 million football building right now. Suddenly, their facilities are going to be on par with Clemson and LSU. Now, does that change everything? No, you still got to have good coaches. You still got to know how to recruit. You still got to be able to identify talent. But you're not going to lose a guy anymore because the kid goes, wow, I can go down a slide at Clemson. Or, geez, they got a live tiger at LSU. Because now Georgia's going to have some wow and some pop. And for many years, they didn't. And that's a byproduct of Greg McGarity working with Kirby Smart and the McGill Society, which is a whole other conversation, but it has to do with booster money. And Georgia's got a lot of it. And that's why Georgia's catching up, because they've got the money to do the facilities. Now, we know they've got the in-state talent. I think I read today that there were more former high school players from Georgia picked in the NFL draft this year than from the state of Florida. That's what I think. I read that today. I'm going to double check me. Somebody double check me on that. I want to say California and Texas were 1 and 2, but that's very important. Because now Kirby's, and I also think that because of this coronavirus pandemic, one of the byproducts of this is that kids are not going to be as apt to go to school far away. So schools are going to be a little bit more limited to their region. That's great news for Georgia. That's great news for Georgia. You guys know, you know there's some Georgia players that get out of state. Georgia is still going to be able to pull some guys nationally. There'll be a few of those, and there'll be a few guys that leave. But if you're talking about the schools that can stay strong recruiting regionally, Ohio State is one. They dominate their state. There's a ton of prospects in Ohio. Georgia is another. The Florida schools have a lot of talent, but the problem there is as Central Florida, as Florida International, as Florida Atlantic, as South Florida, as these schools, those 4 schools I just mentioned, as they've risen in FBS stature, okay, that's stratified the market. So before, if you were a great player in Florida, you were going to go to Miami, Florida, or Florida State. Now there's other options. You may want to go to USF. You may want to go to Central Florida. You may want to go to Florida Atlantic or Florida International. Remember, we were talking about that Florida International quarterback that got picked ahead of Jake Fromm. You think Florida State could have used him? How about Florida? Could they have used a better quarterback? I don't know. They like Kyle Trask, so maybe not. But how about Miami? You know, they went through a couple quarterbacks and got Danny Enos fired, the quarterback's coach. How quickly things can change. And I had that thought again when I was watching a replay. I don't know, one of those nights you fall asleep on the couch and you wake up watching something. In college, you would like wake up watching like the grave digger and the trucks and stuff you would never watch, but you wake up and it's on, and so you watch it and trucks are jumping. Now you wake up and you watch replayed games. Like, why is this game on? Oh yeah, that's right. LSU didn't even score a point against LSU. LSU didn't even score a point against Alabama in 2018. 1 year later, without almost 50. How quickly things can change. Somebody asked me in here earlier, and forgive me that I didn't answer this question right away, if Joe Brady, the former Saints offensive coordinator and the former Penn State graduate assistant, he wasn't a Saints offensive coordinator, he was an offensive coach, and I believe he was a grad assistant at Penn State. And if he was the reason why LSU did what they did, and the answer is yes and no, he was part of it, okay? What has to happen is that a coaching staff has to make a decision to build their scheme around their talent. And then the players have to execute it and buy in completely, and then they have to stay healthy. And you might say, oh, is that simple? It's not that simple. You got to have complete buy-in. You have key guys stay healthy. And then you've got to have the rights. You've got to be able to assess your talent well enough to understand your touch hierarchy. Okay, who are the 3 or 4 guys we want to get the ball? You got to be able to understand it early. I don't know if Georgia knew what they had in Lawrence Cager at the start of last year. I don't know, but after the Notre Dame game, they sure did, right? We all kind of did. We all went, wow. You know, when Cager first came, and by the way, Lawrence signed with free agent contract with the Jets, so congratulations to Lawrence. He's a guy I have a lot of respect for. But Lawrence really emerged in that Notre Dame game. And so, but getting back to my point, so you got to have the visionary that can find the plays that matches the talent. And that's what LSU did. And then you got to get lucky enough to stay healthy. So there you go. Laura Lovett, AJC headline, 26 players with ties to Georgia high school. So there you go. AJC does a great job. I say it every show. I'm going to say it again. You know, times are tough. I am one of the very fortunate people that my employment has not been affected. And the Cox Enterprises group that I work for, I say this because it means a lot to me. I've worked for a lot of companies. I work very hard, and I appreciate it when I've got an employer that takes care of their employees. And I've never worked for a company that takes care of their employees the way that Cox has. So I've got to say that means a lot to me. I know they've got a big presence in Atlanta. I'm sure people see it from the outside in, but being a part of the inside, the messages that we've gotten from our leadership are just unbelievable, and they motivate you every day. You wonder why I'm sitting here at 9:30 on a Sunday night. It's because I'm going to do everything I can to deliver for my readers and for my brand and for the video viewers. And that's built up through a good company. So I want to share that. And I just did. Jay Bryan, Tyler Clarke, yes, he signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's good news for Tyler Clarke. I will give you that rundown right now. That was a story that Connor and I worked on together last night, trying to make sure that we got all the news out on where everybody went. Happy to see a couple Tennessee guys sign, Marquez Callaway, Nigel Warrior. These are guys that I covered when I covered Tennessee. And you might say, Griff, why are you bringing this up? Because I've told you before, it's about people, and you make a connection to these players. And, you know, just like Monty Rice, you know, Monty joking around, oh, I love you guys. I called Monty out because he missed me. I like Monty Rice. You want to know something? If Monty has 15 tackles, I'm going to be happy for him. Does that mean I'm a Georgia fan? No. It's just I like Monty Rice because I know what he's all about. So he's, and some of these Tennessee guys, I covered them when they were recruits. I was in Daniel Batuli's high school at Nashville Christian. I did a story on him. I know his story. I'm glad he signed a free agent deal. I'm sorry that he had bad knees. That's why he didn't sign a contract. Nigel Warrior, I visited his mother in College Park and him and did a Facebook Live with him from his home. Disappointed he didn't get drafted, but he's got 5-star talent. He's with the Ravens now. Marquez Callaway, Juwan Jennings, a guy. So, like I said, you make relationships with people, you make relationships with players, and you root for them. So let's go down the list here of the Georgia free agents. You all asked me this question. So Rodrigo Blankenship goes to the Indianapolis Colts. I think it's a great fit. I love that he's in a dome. J.R. Reed, undrafted free agent, signs with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he is a pro. Jonathan Kaysen, I think Georgia wins the title this year. I think they better. This earlier in the show, I talked about 9 guys going off defense in the NFL. I think this is a short window. I think this is a year for it. And I think that the break in the action favors defensive teams because all the offenses will have less preparation time. And so the choreography and the timing is not going to be good for offenses. That's going to make Georgia's defensive advantage even more exaggerated. So I think this is the year, provided that Jamie Newman is who we think he is. Brian Harrington signs with the Cleveland Browns. Lawrence Cager to the New York Jets. Eli Wolf, a good fit for Eli with the Baltimore Ravens. Tyler Simmons, the Houston Texans. Tyler Clarke, Cincinnati. Tyreek McGee, Los Angeles Rams. Still waiting on David Marshall and Michael Barnett. David Marshall, remember, he's had that foot injury the last 2 years. I've got to think it's the physical. I've got to think there's some questions about his health. And listen, Michael Barnett, we had him on the show a couple weeks ago. I think we all love Michael. He was certainly respected. He was a game captain, just a big, hard-working guy. He's worked himself into great condition. He just needs to get in camp. I know his agent is working very hard on that, but it's very important to get with the right team. Again, not quite as important as the quarterback position, right? But at these other positions, you really got to do your homework. You've got to know the roster, and you've got to give your client and you've got to give yourself your best chance to make a roster or at least a practice squad. Now, what's hurt a lot of these guys is the COVID-19 forced the cancellation of pro day. A lot of the interviews and workouts that these guys would have had with teams got canceled because the NFL wasn't traveling, and so everything's based on film. And you don't get that. I think that's part of what hurt Jake Fromm really bad. In fact, I think if Jake Fromm had been able to interview with these teams and have the normal workouts, I think he would have gone in the first 2 or 3 rounds. So COVID-19 played a role in this. It's playing a role in all of our lives. And this is when I'll tell you again, we're going to get through it. Okay. Remember, we're on this side of it. We need to get to that side of it. We need to get to the new normal with as little collateral damage as possible. So you take care of yourself. You take a measured approach to the decisions that you make for your family. Again, I'm not going to tell anybody how to live their life. They can open up the state. I'm personally not ready to go out yet, but I know that there's younger people that are, or people that are eager to do this, or people that have professional responsibilities that require them to be out. So I'm not going to judge somebody who's in a different circumstance, just as I hope they don't judge me. So I stay out of all that political mumbo jumbo on the internet. I would give you the advice to do the same, because everybody has a different perspective, and until you walk a mile in their shoes, you can't understand them any more than they understand you. All that said, the things that you can control is to stay positive, is to take care of yourself and prepare yourself for the worst and hope for the best. Stay as healthy as you possibly can and focus on that future goal, because we're going to come out of this on the other side. I believe there's going to be a football season. I don't know the circumstance. I don't know if I'm getting on an airplane and flying to Missouri. I don't know if they're going to allow everybody in the press box. I don't know if there's going to be social distancing. There's going to be different circumstances ahead. There's no point stressing about it or worrying about it. What I can do is prepare for it and set goals and tell myself that I'm going to deal with whatever pitch I'm getting. You know, you settle in the batter's box. You really want to hit one out of the park, but sometimes you don't get the pitch. You got to be willing to go with the pitch, right? I'm not ready to swing yet, but when I swing, I want to pick out a pitch. I'm going to drive it, right? But I don't have control over what's coming down the pipe any more than I can control these circumstances, and neither can you. So keep a positive attitude. Take care of your family. Make the most of the situation with your kids. You hear an echo in here. I'm an empty nester. I wish my kids were here to bother me. I wish my kids were here tugging on me, asking me for a meal, asking me to play a game, making too much noise while I'm trying to work. I miss that. take advantage of your families, okay? You've got that going for you. So please take advantage of your families and take care of yourselves. I want to thank you again for joining me tonight. I want to see if anybody's got any questions. I never want to sign off when there's still questions, but I do realize people need to go to bed. What do we got? Willie Foster. Jonathan Kaysen, yeah, there's certainly going to be people. If Georgia wins the national championship, people are going to go, oh yeah, but, right? That's just the way it is. There's always going to be second guessers. There's always going to be doubters. There's always going to be people that try and take it away, take your glory away from you. That's just the nature of the beast. Clemson probably thought I was doing that to them 2 years ago. When I said that Alabama had the best regular season, Clemson fans got very upset with me. They felt like I was trying to take some of the joy from their season. I really wasn't. I was just giving an assessment. And the reason I was giving the assessment was because people were going, oh, Mike, why did you pick Alabama? And I said, well, because until Georgia played them tough, nobody had played Alabama within 22 points, which had never happened since the 1800s in college football. It was a historically dominant season. The Clemson fans are going to be going, oh, there he is. He's talking about it again. But that was why. I backed it up. Why did I pick Alabama to beat Clemson 2 years ago? Because I thought they were better. I picked LSU this year, but not because I don't like Clemson. Trevor Lawrence, to me, I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I got myself in trouble because an LSU website said, can you believe that Dabo Swinney said he would take Trevor Lawrence over Joe Burrow or Tua Tagovailoa? And I said, yeah, I would too. I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence. Do you guys agree? Would you take Trevor Lawrence over Joe Burrow and Tua? I mean, I would. If I'm an NFL GM, I just like Trevor Lawrence. I like what he stands for. I like the prolific size. I mean, you've seen the guy take a hit. Burrow had a magical year, but where was he before that, right? So, Trevor to me, though, has always been about greatness, and that's why I like him so much. So thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching the show tonight. I'm not out of gas yet, but if you guys are good, I'm good. What else do we got here? Jay Bryant's talking Falcons. Jay, I can't go there with the Falcons, man. I went there with the Lions. All right, the Lions, I'm so glad that I didn't grow up a Lions fan, okay? Because it's just a perennial. And you like their uniforms. They got cool color. They're just losers. But now they've got Nada and Stafford and Swift. And I'm thinking, I might have to, pull for the Lions because I'm going to get, Deandre Swift on my fantasy football team. You can bet that. That guy's got nose for the end zone. And I might have to draft Matt Stafford this year because I like all the charity work. You got to feel good about your fantasy football team, don't you? And all the work that Matt Stafford and Kelly Stafford are doing, for the EMTs up there and the providers. I'm probably gonna pick Matt Stafford as well. So, but the Falcons are an acquired dislike. So I moved down, Tennessee. I've been in the South a long time, but the Falcons were just kind of yeah, okay. Never really disliked him, never really liked him, but I'm starting to understand why fans are so frustrated with the Falcons. And I'll leave it at that. I don't hate the Falcons. I like their owner. I think that's the best stadium I've ever been in the world. And I was in London for the Olympics, and that stadium was unbelievable. But Mercedes-Benz Stadium is the best stadium in the world, and I don't take it for granted. And I'm hoping to be there on Labor Day weekend to see Georgia play against Virginia. So, guys, I'm going to put a wrap on it tonight. Again, thanks for joining me. If you have any more questions, put it in the comments. Full confession, I had a typo earlier in the story. There were a few people that pointed out I had a typo. I wrote Andrew Thomas instead of Isaiah Wilson. That was a mistake. My bad. Didn't proof well enough. I've sent emails to those people. If I make a mistake, believe me, it's not because I mean to. I'm doing the best I can do. And if you send me a message or an email and say, hey, you got a mistake, I would appreciate it because I'm seriously far, far, far from perfect. So thanks for all the support. I'll be back on again Tuesday. Hopefully you're able to catch that show. Hoping, fingers crossed, to get Isaac Nauta. We'll surely have the Senior Bowl Executive Director. We're going to talk about where Jake Fromm went. We're going to talk about the different fits, Andrew Thomas, Isaiah Wilson, and then we're going to talk about next year's Georgia team and who some of the NFL prospects are that Jim Nagy sees. So everybody, take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. We're getting closer. It's one day closer to the end, man. We're going to get through this. We're going to come out the other side. We're all going to be stronger, happier. A new normal is waiting. Everyone have a great Sunday night, and thank you again for joining me here on my Ingles on the Beat Sunday night show.